The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 a.m., just like it had every morning for the past 3 years. Maya rolled over and hit the snooze button with more force than necessary. Her small apartment was cold, and she could hear the neighbor's dog barking through the thin walls. Another day, another dollar, she thought as she dragged herself out of bed. Maya was 26 years old and worked as a nurse in the emergency department of City General Hospital. It wasn't the fancy hospital downtown, where all the rich people went. This was the place where real people came when they had nowhere else to turn. The building was old, the equipment was older, and the coffee in the break room tasted like it had been brewing since the 1990s. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror as she brushed her teeth. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of too many double shifts and not enough sleep. Her scrubs were clean but worn, and she made a mental note to buy new ones when she had some extra money. Which, let's be honest, might be never. The drive to work took her through the part of town where she grew up. Small houses with chain-link fences, corner stores with bars on the windows, and bus stops where people waited with tired faces. Maya knew these streets like the back of her hand. She knew the struggle of counting pennies to buy groceries and the embarrassment of having your card declined at the checkout. That's why she became a nurse. Not for the money, because there wasn't much of that. Not for the glory, because cleaning up after sick people wasn't exactly glamorous. She did it because she remembered what it felt like to be invisible, to be just another poor kid that society forgot about. At the hospital, Maya clocked in and grabbed her assignment sheet. Room 302 needed medication. Room 318 was asking for more blankets, and room 325 wanted to know when the doctor would be back. Just another typical morning in paradise. But Maya didn't mind the chaos. She actually liked it. There was something beautiful about being the person who brought comfort to people during their worst moments. When someone was scared and in pain, she could be the voice that said everything would be okay, even when she wasn't sure it would. Her first patient was an elderly woman who had fallen at home and broken her hip. The woman kept apologizing for being such a bother, which broke Maya's heart. She sat with her for a few extra minutes, holding her hand and listening to stories about her grandchildren. The woman's eyes lit up when she talked about them, and Maya could see the love there. Next was a construction worker who had hurt his back on the job. He was worried about missing work because he had 3 kids to feed. Maya helped him fill out the paperwork for workers' compensation and gave him information about local food banks just in case. She had memorized the locations of every resource center in the city because her patients often needed help beyond just medical care. By noon, Maya was exhausted, but she still had 6 hours left on her shift. Her lunch break was only 30 minutes, which wasn't enough time to go home. She usually just grabbed something from the vending machine and ate it in the break room while scrolling through her phone. But today felt different somehow. Maybe it was the spring sunshine streaming through the hospital windows, or maybe she just needed a change of scenery. She decided to walk across the street to the small cafe that had opened a few months ago. She had never been inside, but it looked cozy from the outside. The cafe was busy with the lunch crowd. Office workers in suits, hospital staff still wearing their badges, and a few people who looked like they might be patients' family members grabbing a quick bite. Maya got in line behind a young mother who was holding the hand of a little girl with pigtails. The little girl was maybe 7 or 8 years old, with bright eyes and a gap-toothed smile. She was telling her mother about something that happened at school, speaking in that excited way kids do when they have important news to share. The mother was listening carefully, nodding and asking questions, but Maya could see the stress lines around her eyes. When they reached the counter, the mother ordered a small coffee and asked about the price of a sandwich. The girl pressed her face against the glass display case, looking at the cookies and muffins with the kind of longing that only kids can have. The mother counted the coins in her wallet twice, then asked the cashier to cancel the sandwich order. Maya felt her chest tighten. She had been that little girl once, watching her own mother count money and make hard choices. She remembered the disappointment of wanting something small and simple, but knowing it cost too much. She remembered her mother's face when she had to say no, and how it hurt worse than not getting the treat. Without really thinking about it, Maya stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said to the cashier. I'd like to pay for their order and add a chocolate chip cookie for the little girl. The mother turned around, surprised. Oh no, you don't have to do that, she said quickly. We're fine, really. But Maya could see that they weren't fine. The mother's clothes were clean but old, and her shoes had been repaired more than once. The little girl's backpack had patches covering holes, but it was obvious that someone had tried to make them look decorative rather than necessary. Please, Maya said gently. I know what it's like. And besides, I think your daughter has been very patient while waiting in line. She deserves a cookie. The little girl's eyes went wide with excitement. Really? I can have a cookie? Her mother looked like she might cry. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea what this means. But Maya did know. She knew exactly what it meant because she had lived it. She knew the relief of unexpected kindness and the way it could make you believe that maybe the world wasn't as hard as it seemed. The mother and daughter found a table by the window, and Maya watched them share the sandwich and the cookie. The little girl was chattering happily, and the mother was smiling in a way that reached her eyes. It was a small moment, but it felt important. Maya ordered her own lunch and found a quiet corner where she could eat and think. She thought about her own mother, who was at home right now, probably watching daytime television and worrying about money. Maya's mother had been laid off from her job at the factory 6 months ago, and finding new work at her age wasn't easy. Maya was supporting both of them on her nurse's salary, which meant there wasn't much left over for extras. She had been working double shifts whenever possible, trying to build up some savings, but it felt like she was always just one emergency away from falling behind. But looking at the mother and daughter across the room, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a while. Hope, maybe. Or just the simple satisfaction that comes from making someone else's day a little brighter. Her problems were still there, but for a moment, they didn't seem quite so heavy. She finished her sandwich and checked her phone. Still 15 minutes left on her break. She decided to sit and enjoy the sunshine coming through the window and the sound of normal people having normal conversations. Tomorrow, she would go back to worrying about bills and double shifts and whether her mother would find a job. But right now, in this moment, she felt good about the choice she had made. Maya had no idea that someone had been watching the entire interaction. She didn't know that her simple act of kindness had been noticed by someone who would soon change her life forever. She was just a tired nurse who saw a little girl who wanted a cookie and a mother who couldn't afford to buy it. Sometimes the most ordinary moments turn out to be the most extraordinary. And sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes. Maya was about to learn both of these lessons in ways she never could have imagined. Maya finished her coffee and checked her phone one more time. Her break was almost over and she needed to get back to the hospital. The afternoon shift was always busy, and she had patients waiting for their medications. She stood up from her table and gathered her things, feeling a little more refreshed than when she had arrived. As she walked toward the cafe door, she noticed the mother and daughter were still at their table by the window. The little girl was coloring on a napkin, with a crayon she must have had in her backpack, and her mother was helping her. They looked peaceful and happy, and Maya smiled to herself. Sometimes the smallest things could make the biggest difference in someone's day. The bell above the door chimed as Maya stepped outside. The spring air felt good on her face, and she took a deep breath. Across the street, City General Hospital looked the same as always, a big brick building that had seen better days. But it was her second home, and the people inside were counting on her. Maya was halfway across the parking lot when she heard the shouting. At first, she thought maybe someone was just having a loud phone conversation. People did that all the time, especially in hospital parking lots where emotions ran high. But something about the tone made her stop walking and look around. Near the far end of the parking lot, she could see two men standing next to a blue sedan. One of them was yelling at someone she couldn't see clearly. The voice sounded angry, desperate even. Maya's nursing instincts kicked in immediately. In her line of work, you learned to recognize when something was seriously wrong. She moved closer, staying behind parked cars so she could see what was happening without being noticed. What she saw made her blood run cold. An elderly man was Sitting on the ground next to the open driver's door of the car, he looked confused and hurt, and one of the men standing over him was holding something in his hand that definitely wasn't supposed to be there. Maya's heart started pounding. She had seen enough crime shows to know what was happening. This was a carjacking, and the old man was in real trouble. She pulled out her phone to call 911, but her hands were shaking so badly she could barely unlock the screen. The elderly man was trying to stand up, but he was moving slowly, like maybe he was hurt or just scared. He was probably someone's grandfather, maybe on his way to visit family or coming back from a doctor's appointment. Maya thought about her own mother and how helpless she would be in a situation like this. "Please," she could hear the old man saying. "Just take the car. I won't call anyone, I promise." But the two criminals were getting more agitated. They kept looking around nervously, like they were worried someone would see them. One of them was pacing back and forth, and Maya could tell they were both high on something. That made everything more dangerous because people on drugs didn't think clearly. Maya finally managed to dial 911, but when she tried to speak, her voice came out as a whisper. The operator asked her to repeat herself, and Maya had to clear her throat and try again. "There's a carjacking in progress at City General Hospital," she said as quietly as she could. "Two men, one elderly victim. They have a weapon." The operator told her to stay on the line and asked for more details. Maya crouched behind a minivan and tried to give the dispatcher everything she could see. The license plate number, what the men were wearing, the make and model of the car they were trying to steal. But as she was talking, something changed. The elderly man tried to stand up again, and this time he made it to his feet. Maybe he was trying to run, or maybe he was just trying to get his balance. But one of the criminals panicked. Maya watched in horror as the man with the weapon raised it and pointed it directly at the old man's chest. Time seemed to slow down, like in those movies where everything happens in slow motion. She could see. The fear in the elderly man's eyes, could see his hands raised in front of him like that would somehow protect him. And in that moment, Maya made a choice that would change everything. She didn't think about it. There wasn't time to think. There wasn't time to weigh the options or consider the consequences. All she knew was that an innocent person was about to be hurt, and she was the only one who could stop it. Maya dropped her phone and ran. She had always been fast. In high school, she had been on the track team, and even now, after years of working long shifts and not getting enough exercise, she could still move when she needed to. She ran harder than she had ever run in her life, pumping her arms and pushing herself forward. "Stop!" she yelled as she got closer. "Leave him alone." The two criminals turned to look at her surprised. They probably hadn't expected a nurse in scrubs to come running at them like some kind of superhero. For a second, everyone just stood there frozen. Then the elderly man took a step backward, maybe trying to get away while the criminals were distracted. But his foot caught on something, and he started to fall. The criminal with the weapon swung back toward him, and Maya could see what was about to happen. Without even thinking, she threw herself between them. The sound was louder than she expected. Not like the quiet pop you hear in movies, but a sharp crack that echoed off the buildings around them. Maya felt something hit her shoulder, like someone had punched her really hard. And then she was falling. The pavement was cold and rough against her cheek. She could hear footsteps running away, car doors slamming, tires squealing. But everything sounded far away, like she was underwater or wearing headphones. Maya tried to sit up, but her right arm wouldn't work properly. There was something warm and wet spreading across her chest, and when she looked down, she saw that her blue scrubs were turning dark red. That's when she realized what had happened. She had been shot. The elderly man was kneeling beside her now, his hands shaking as he pressed something against her shoulder. His face was pale, but his eyes were kind and worried. "You're going to be okay," he kept saying. "Help is coming. You're going to be fine." Maya wanted to tell him that she was a nurse, that she knew how these things worked, that it would take more than a shoulder wound to stop her. But talking seemed too hard right now, and she was feeling very tired. She could hear sirens in the distance getting closer. The 911 call she had started was probably still active, and other people must have called too when they heard the gunshot. Soon there would be ambulances and police cars, and all the chaos that comes with emergencies. But right now, in this moment, it was just her and this stranger, whose life she had just saved, a man she had never met before today, someone who meant nothing to her except that he was a human being who needed help. Maya closed her eyes and tried to stay conscious. She thought about her mother, who would be so worried when she found out what happened. She thought about her patients back at the hospital who were probably wondering where their medications were. She thought about the little girl in the cafe who had been so excited about her cookie. Most of all, she thought about the choice she had made. In that split second when she saw someone in danger, she hadn't hesitated. She had done what felt right, even though it meant putting herself at risk. As the sirens got louder and the elderly man kept talking to her in his gentle voice, Maya realized something important. She had always wondered if she was brave enough to be the kind of person who would help others when it really mattered. Now she knew the answer. Maya woke up to the sound of beeping machines and the smell of disinfectant. For a moment she forgot where she was. The ceiling above her looked familiar, but something was different. Then the pain in her shoulder reminded her of everything that had happened. She was in her own hospital in one of the patient rooms she had walked past hundreds of times, but now she was the one lying in the bed connected to monitors and IV lines. Her right arm was in a sling, and there were bandages wrapped around her shoulder and chest. Maya? Oh, thank goodness you're awake. She turned her head to see Dr. Rodriguez, one of the emergency room doctors she worked with every day. He looked tired and worried, which was unusual for him. Dr. Rodriguez was always calm and collected, even during the worst emergencies. How long have I been out? Maya asked. Her voice sounded scratchy and weak. About 18 hours. You lost a lot of blood, and we had to do surgery to remove the bullet and repair some damage. But you're going to be okay. Maya tried to sit up, but the movement sent a sharp pain through her shoulder. The elderly man, is he safe? Dr. Rodriguez smiled. He's fine, thanks to you. He's been here all night, actually. He refused to leave until he knew you were okay. As if on cue, there was a soft knock on the door. The elderly man from the parking lot peeked in, holding a small bouquet of flowers. He looked much better than he had yesterday, though Maya could see worry lines around his eyes. I hope I'm not bothering you, he said quietly. I just wanted to see how you were doing. Please come in, Maya said. I never got your name. David Chen, he replied, walking slowly to her bedside. And I owe you my life. Maya shook her head. You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone would do. David's eyes filled with tears. No, my dear. Not everyone would do what you did. Most people would have called the police and stayed hidden. You put yourself in danger to save a complete stranger. Dr. Rodriguez excused himself to check on other patients, leaving Maya and David alone. David pulled up a chair next to her bed and sat down carefully. I have to tell you something, he said. I'm not just any retired old man. I spent 40 years as a teacher, and for the last 10 years, I've been running a scholarship foundation. We help young people who show exceptional character and promise. Maya listened quietly as David continued. Yesterday, when you threw yourself in front of that gun, you reminded me why I started the foundation in the first place. There are still good people in this world, people who put others before themselves. Before Maya could respond, her hospital room door opened again. This time it was her supervisor, Jennifer, along with several other nurses from her floor. They were carrying balloons, flowers, and cards. Maya, Jennifer rushed to her bedside. We've been so worried about you. The whole hospital's talking about what you did. It's not that big of a deal, Maya said, feeling embarrassed by all the attention. Are you kidding? Said Lisa, one of the younger nurses. You're a hero. The story is all over the local news. They're calling you the angel nurse. Maya's heart sank. The news? My mother? Does she know? Jennifer's expression softened. We called her last night. She's been here, actually. She just went home to shower and change clothes. She should be back soon. Over the next few hours, Maya's room filled with visitors, colleagues from the hospital, patients she had cared for, and even some people she had never met who had heard about what happened. Everyone wanted to thank her, to tell her how brave she was, to bring her flowers and cards. But Maya felt overwhelmed. All this attention made her uncomfortable. She had never thought of herself as someone special, just a nurse doing her job. The idea that people were calling her a hero seemed wrong somehow. The elderly man, David, stayed through most of the visits. He seemed to understand that Maya was feeling overwhelmed, and he helped redirect some of the conversation away from her when she looked tired. That evening, after most of the visitors had gone home, Maya's mother finally arrived. She looked like she had been crying, and Maya could see the fear and worry in her eyes. "Mom," Maya said softly as her mother sat down beside the bed. "I almost lost you," her mother whispered, taking Maya's good hand in both of hers. "When they called me and said you had been shot, I thought, I'm okay, Mom. I'm going to be fine." Her mother nodded, but Maya could see she was still shaken. "Why did you do it, baby? Why did you put yourself in danger like that?" Maya thought about the question. Why had she done it? She could have stayed hidden behind the cars. She could have waited for the police to arrive. No one would have blamed her for protecting herself. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I just saw someone who needed help, and I couldn't walk away." Later that night, after her mother had gone home and the hospital had grown quiet, Maya lay awake thinking. Dr. Rodriguez had explained her injuries in detail. The bullet had damaged some nerves in her shoulder and arm. She would recover, but it would take months of physical therapy, and she might never have full strength in her right arm again. What did that mean for her nursing career? So much of her work required physical strength, lifting patients, performing CPR, working long hours on her feet. If she couldn't do those things anymore, what would she do? The financial worry was even worse. She had some insurance through the hospital, but it wouldn't cover everything. Physical therapy was expensive, and she wouldn't be able to work for weeks, maybe months. How would she pay her bills? How would she take care of her mother? Maya tried not to cry, but the tears came anyway. She had saved someone's life, but in doing so, she might have ruined her own. The irony wasn't lost on her. Around midnight, David knocked softly on her door. "I saw your light was still on," he said. "Are you having trouble sleeping?" Maya wiped her eyes quickly. "Just thinking." David sat down in the chair beside her bed. "Want to talk about it?" Before she knew it, Maya was telling him everything. Her worries about her career, her fears about money, her concern for her mother. David listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally to show he understood. When she finished, David was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. "I meant what I said earlier about the Scholarship Foundation," he said. "But I think you misunderstood what kind of help I'm offering." Maya looked at the business card. It had David's name and contact information, but what caught her attention was the logo at the top. It was for the Chen Foundation, one of the largest charitable organizations in the state. "I've been looking for someone to help me run the foundation," David continued. "Someone with character. Someone who understands what it means to help others. Someone exactly like you." Maya stared at him in confusion. "But I'm a nurse. I don't know anything about running a foundation." "You know about helping people," David said simply. "You know what it's like to struggle and work hard for what you have. And yesterday you proved that you're willing to sacrifice for others. Those are the qualifications that matter most." As David explained more about what the job would involve, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, genuine hope that maybe everything would work out after all. She had no idea that, across town in a fancy restaurant office, another conversation was taking place. A successful businessman who had witnessed her act of kindness at the cafe was making plans of his own. Plans that would change Maya's life even more than she could imagine. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives turn out to be the doorways to our best ones. Maya woke up to sunlight streaming through her hospital window. It had been exactly 24 hours since the shooting, and she felt different somehow. Not just physically, though her shoulder still ached with every movement. Something deeper had changed. like the world had shifted while she slept. Her breakfast tray sat untouched on the rolling table beside her bed. The hospital food looked as unappetizing as ever, but Maya's mind was too busy to think about eating. David's offer from the night before kept replaying in her head. Running a foundation? Her? It seemed impossible, but the hope in his eyes had been real. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Maya expected to see David or maybe her mother, but instead, a man in an expensive suit stood in her doorway. He was probably in his 40s with kind eyes and a nervous smile. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said. "My name is Robert Martinez. I own several restaurants here in the city. I was wondering if I could have a few minutes of your time." Maya nodded, curious. "Of course, please come in." Robert walked into the room carrying a small gift bag and what looked like a business proposal. He seemed nervous, which was strange for someone who clearly had money and success. "I have to be honest with you," Robert began, sitting in the chair beside her bed. "I was at the cafe yesterday when you paid for that mother and daughter's meal. I saw the whole thing." Maya's cheeks flushed. "Oh, that was nothing, really." "It wasn't nothing to me," Robert said firmly. "I've been in business for 15 years, and I've met a lot of people. But what I saw yesterday was something rare. You didn't just give them money. You gave them dignity. You made that little girl feel special, and you did it in a way that didn't make her mother feel ashamed." Maya wasn't sure what to say. The act had felt so natural, so simple. She hadn't thought anyone was paying attention. Robert opened his briefcase and pulled out some papers. "I've been following your story since yesterday. What you did in that parking lot, risking your life for a stranger, it confirms what I already knew about your character." He handed her a folder with his company logo on it. "I want to offer you a job. Not just any job, but a chance to make a real difference in people's lives." Maya opened the folder and saw a job description that made her heart skip. Community Outreach Director for Martinez Restaurant Group. The salary listed at the bottom was more than double what she made as a nurse. "I don't understand," Maya said slowly. "What would I actually do?" Robert's face lit up with enthusiasm. "Help people just like you've been doing your whole life. I want to start a program where my restaurants partner with local charities. We'd provide meals for homeless shelters, sponsor school lunch programs for kids who can't afford them, create job training programs for people who need a second chance." He leaned forward in his chair. "I need someone who understands what it's like to struggle. Someone who sees people as more than just statistics. Someone exactly like you." Maya stared at the papers in her hands. Yesterday she had been a nurse worried about paying her bills. Now she had 2 incredible job offers from people who barely knew her. "I know it's a lot to think about," Robert continued, "and I know you might be wondering why I'm doing this. The truth is, my own mother was a single parent who worked 3 jobs to support me and my sister. There were times when we went to bed hungry, times when she had to choose between paying rent and buying groceries." His voice grew softer. "One day when I was about 8, we were at a grocery store, and my mom was counting change to buy bread and milk. This woman behind us in line saw what was happening and quietly paid for our entire cart of groceries. My mom cried right there, in the store." Maya felt tears forming in her own eyes. "That woman changed our lives," Robert said. "Not just because of the money, but because she showed us that strangers could be kind, that there were good people in the world who cared about others. Yesterday, when I saw you with that mother and daughter, I saw that same kindness." Before Maya could respond, there was another knock on her door. This time it was Jennifer, her nursing supervisor, but she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a woman Maya didn't recognize, wearing a press badge and carrying a camera. "Maya, I hope you don't mind," Jennifer said. "This is Ashley from Channel 7 News. She'd like to talk to you about what happened yesterday." The reporter, Ashley, stepped forward with a bright smile. "Maya, you've become quite the local hero. People are calling what you did extraordinary. We'd love to feature your story on our evening news program." Maya felt overwhelmed. "I really don't think I'm comfortable with that. I'm not a hero. I just did what felt right." Ashley sat down on the edge of the bed. "That's exactly why people need to hear your story. In a world where we're constantly hearing about bad news, your act of courage gives people hope. She pulled out her phone and showed Maya the local news website. The headline read, "Local nurse risks life to save stranger." Below it was a photo someone had taken of Maya being loaded into the ambulance. The story has been shared thousands of times on social media, Ashley continued. People are inspired by what you did, but more than that, they want to help. We've had dozens of people call the station asking how they can support you during your recovery. Maya's head was spinning. 24 hours ago, she had been worried about whether she could afford new scrubs. Now she had job offers, news reporters, wanting to interview her, and apparently people she'd never met wanting to help her. Robert spoke up. Actually, I have another idea that might interest both of you. He looked at Ashley, then back at Maya. What if we created a weekly television segment about ordinary people doing extraordinary things? Maya could host it and my restaurant group could sponsor it. Ashley's eyes lit up. That's brilliant. We're always looking for positive community content. Maya, you have a natural way with people. You could really make a difference by highlighting good news stories. Maya looked around the room at all these successful people who suddenly wanted to be part of her life. Part of her wondered if she was dreaming. How could everything change so quickly? Her phone buzzed with a text message from her mother. Saw the news story online. So proud of you, baby. Can't wait to see you later. That's when it hit her. Her mother. The woman who had worked multiple jobs and sacrificed everything to give Maya a chance at a better life. All of these opportunities were amazing. But what mattered most was being able to take care of the person who had taken care of her. I need some time to think about all of this, Maya said finally. 24 hours ago, I was just a nurse trying to make ends meet. Now you're all offering me chances I never dreamed of. Robert stood up and handed her his business card. Take all the time you need. But Maya, I want you to know something. Yesterday, when you helped that family at the cafe, you didn't just pay for their meal. You reminded me why I wanted to be successful in the first place. To help people, just like someone once helped my family. After everyone left, Maya sat alone in her hospital room, surrounded by flowers and cards from well-wishers. She thought about the choice she had made in that parking lot. In one split second, she had decided to put someone else's life before her own. She had no idea that single moment of courage would open doors she never knew existed. But more than that, she was beginning to understand that her real journey was just beginning. The bullet that had knocked her down might actually be the thing that lifted her up higher than she ever imagined possible. 6 months had passed since that life-changing day in the hospital parking lot. Maya stood in front of her new office window, looking down at the busy street below. Her reflection showed a woman who looked the same on the outside but felt completely different on the inside. The office was beautiful, nothing like the cramped break room at the hospital where she used to eat lunch. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a mahogany desk, and shelves lined with books about nonprofit management and community development. On the wall hung a framed photo from her first television segment, and beside it, a newspaper clipping with the headline, "Local Hero Turns Tragedy into Hope." Maya touched her right shoulder gently. The physical therapy had worked better than anyone expected. She still had some stiffness on cold days, but the doctor said she was lucky. The bullet had missed anything vital, and her body had healed remarkably well. But the real healing had been emotional. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Saw your segment on TV last night. Mrs. Peterson from next door said you made her cry happy tears. Love you, baby. Maya smiled. Her mother had been able to quit looking for work because Maya's new salary was enough to support them both comfortably. More than comfortably, actually. For the first time in their lives, they didn't have to worry about money. The Chen Foundation had given Maya a chance to help people on a scale she never imagined. Last month alone, they had provided scholarships to 12 students, funded a new after-school program, and helped 3 families avoid eviction. David had been right when he said she knew how to help people. It turned out that understanding struggle was the best qualification for fighting it. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, Maya called. It was Linda, her assistant, carrying a stack of letters. The weekly mail from viewers, she said with a smile. And Maya, there's someone here to see you. She says it's important. Maya looked up from the letters. Send her in. A young woman walked into the office and Maya's breath caught. It was the mother from the cafe, the one whose meal she had paid for 6 months ago. But she looked different now, more confident, wearing clothes that fit properly, with hope in her eyes instead of worry. I'm sorry to bother you, the woman said nervously. I know you're busy now, being on TV and everything. But I had to come thank you. Maya stood up and walked around her desk. Please sit down. How are you? How's your daughter? The woman who introduced herself as Carmen sat down with tears in her eyes. You probably don't even remember us. It was just a sandwich and a cookie to you. I remember, Maya said softly. I remember everything about that day. Carmen pulled out her phone and showed Maya a picture. It was her daughter, the little girl with pigtails, but now she was wearing a school uniform and holding a certificate. She made honor roll, Carmen said proudly. And it's because of you. Maya looked confused. I don't understand. After that day at the cafe, my daughter kept talking about the nice lady who bought her a cookie. She said she wanted to be like you when she grew up, someone who helps people. Carmen wiped her eyes. She started working harder in school because she said she wanted to make you proud. Maya felt her own tears starting. Carmen, that's wonderful, but she doesn't even know me. That's not true, Carmen said. She knows the most important thing about you. She knows you're kind, and kids, they remember kindness more than anything else. Carmen reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. I got a job 3 months ago at the elementary school where she goes. It's not much, but it's steady work with benefits. I've been saving money ever since, and I wanted to give this to your foundation. Maya opened the envelope and found a check for $500. It wasn't a huge amount compared to some of the donations they received, but Maya knew it represented sacrifice and gratitude. Carmen, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Carmen said firmly. You showed me that there are good people in the world. People who help strangers just because it's the right thing to do. I want to be one of those people too. After Carmen left, Maya sat at her desk thinking about how one small act could create ripples that spread in ways you never expected. Her television segment, Everyday Heroes, had become the most popular local program in the city. Every week, she featured ordinary people doing extraordinary things for their communities. There was the teenager who started a garden to provide fresh vegetables for elderly neighbors, the retired mechanic who fixed cars for free for single mothers, the group of kids who organized a toy drive for families who couldn't afford Christmas presents. Maya had learned that heroes weren't people with superpowers or fame. They were people who saw a need and decided to fill it, who chose kindness when they could have chosen indifference. Robert's restaurant program had grown beyond anything they had originally planned. They now provided over 1,000 meals a week to local shelters and food banks. They had hired dozens of people who needed second chances, and several had been promoted to management positions. But the most surprising development had been personal. David had become like a father figure to Maya. He had never married or had children of his own, and he often said that meeting Maya had filled a space in his heart he didn't even know was empty. He had dinner with Maya and her mother every Sunday, and he had been the one to walk Maya across the stage when she received the city's humanitarian award last month. Maya's mother had also flourished in ways Maya never expected. She had started volunteering at the foundation, helping with administrative work and mentoring other mothers who were struggling. She often said that almost losing Maya had reminded her how precious life was, and how important it was to use your time helping others. The hospital where Maya used to work had established a scholarship fund in her name for nurses who wanted to continue their education. Maya visited regularly, not as a patient this time, but as a board member helping to guide the fund's decisions. Dr. Rodriguez had told her that applications for nursing school in the area had increased by 30% since her story became widely known. Young people were inspired by the idea that nurses weren't just medical professionals but everyday heroes who could make a real difference in the world. Maya opened one of the viewer letters from the stack Linda had brought. It was from a high school student in a neighboring state who had seen her television segment online. Dear Maya, it read, I used to think that helping people required having lots of money or being famous. But your story taught me that the most important thing is just caring enough to act. Last week, I started a tutoring program at my school for kids who are struggling with math. It's small, but it's a start. Thank you for showing me that anyone can be a hero. Maya smiled and reached for her phone. She had an idea for next week's television segment. As the sun set outside her office window, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the choice she had made in that parking lot, the split-second decision to put someone else's life before her own. She had expected that moment to be the end of something. Instead, it had been the beginning of everything. Maya had learned that sometimes the most ordinary people, in the most ordinary moments, make choices that change not just their own lives, but the lives of everyone around them. The bullet that knocked her down had actually lifted her up, showing her a purpose she never knew she was meant to fulfill. She was still helping people, just like she always had. But now, instead of healing one person at a time, she was healing an entire community. And it all started with a simple choice to be kind.